Hi, on any given day, I've got a whole bunch of ideas about watches, the watch industry, watch collecting running through my head. A lot of them become videos. A lot of the time, I kind of get stuck and aren't sure how to move forward. In a few cases where I've done that, I ask you some questions around this topic. I'm going to do that today on three things that I've kind of got bubbling in the back of my head, and I'm after some inspiration on how to move forward. Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville. And like I said, I've got a bunch of ideas. I've got notebooks full of half concepts for videos, half scripts. Sometimes, though, I'm not even sure what I think. And quite often I'll talk about what the community thinks, but sometimes I'm not sure the answer's there either. What I like to do in those cases is throw it open to you. You know, a couple of hundred of you, if in my wildest dreams, a couple of thousand of you might see this video. Some of you might come back and give me really good answers on some of these questions. So with no further ado, let's get into those questions. The first is, why don't we like limited editions? Now, it's very clear that we don't, or at best, we're kind of ambivalent about it. Brands like Seiko, Grand Seiko, Omega, recently Breitling's been copying a bit of stick for the fact that there's too many limited editions. My question is, why don't we like it? Is it some quick thoughts going through my head is we as consumers don't like it because we feel like we're being pressured to buy something. We feel like there's so much on the market at the moment. We're suffering from this kind of agony of choice. How do I choose? Maybe it's a kind of, we feel like limited editions induce a kind of FOMO, a kind of fear of missing out. Because there's this time guillotine of you have to make your decision quickly. Sometimes you've got to make your decision before you've had a chance to save for it, to think about it, to try it, etc. One thing I see a lot is people claim it's a cash grab from the companies to be like pumping up their SKUs and pumping up product. My question there is, why do we care? If you don't want the watch, don't buy it. Why does it matter to you whether it's a cash grab or not? But then I started thinking perhaps it's because in our minds, a lot of us have actually programmed in the idea that we're going to get a discount, that at some point in a watch's life cycle, it gets to the point where it hits a discount stage and we can start getting it cheaper. Maybe we're angry at the fact that by going to these very short runs, watches never get to that discount stage and we have to pay full retail. Is that it? And the last idea that I've kind of had is perhaps it's because we are fans of brands. Like it or not, most of us are starting to attach ourselves to brands, kind of like we might a football team or something. Maybe it's because we feel that lots of limited editions, lots of cash grabs, lots of these high profile splashes somehow devalue our brand. It's kind of like they're cheating. Look, to be honest, I don't know. That's a bunch of kind of half-assed thoughts of mine. I'd be really interested not in limited editions you did like or didn't like, except insofar as why didn't you like something? Like, how did it affect you so that you felt this was a bad thing for the brand to do? That's really what I'm interested in. Like I said, more than enough people have said they don't like limited editions. What I've really struggled to figure out is why that is. My next question is around sticking with brands. This is a very brand-centric kind of question set. My next question is, do you care about the brand community and other customers in a brand? Does that influence your feelings towards a brand or a watch at all? Online brand communities, brand community influence, all of these things are real. They're built into marketing. The reason we have influencers, the reason we have brand ambassadors is all around this idea that we as humans are attracted to brands through other people and other customers. Now, individuals may occasionally be immune to that and not care about it, but the reality is humans, most humans are. And certainly in the watch community, I see this a lot where people, particularly in the negative sense, will decry ever buying a Hublot as a footballer's watch, won't buy a Ulysse Nardin because that's a kind of Eastern Euro trash watch. They don't like, I've had viewers to my channel who, I'm something of a Breitling fanboy. They've come back and said, they would never buy Breitling because to them it's a pimp's watch. I'll be honest with you. When I see photos of rappers, etc., wanting to buy Rolexes, that is very much puts a distance between me and that brand. That's not a community. They're not customers I want to be associated with, even tangentially between our shared relationship with a watch company. Yeah, what are your feelings on that? And the last question I have, sticking with the whole brand issue, is how much slack do you think we should cut brands for them to make money? And what I mean by this is, take my recent video on the Tag Heuer tie-up with Porsche. There was a common theme with a lot of commenters saying that they think LVMH should cut Tag away, take Tag Heuer, turn it into just Heuer. Now, as a hobbyist, I kind of see where you're coming from. The only downside is that would end up producing a tiny little niche company, Heuer, that produces a couple of watches that you and I and we hobbyists many of us hobbyists would like. But it would also probably lead to the mass shutdown of thousands of stores around the world and, LVMH effectively losing their mass market entry brand, because that's the reality of what Tag Heuer is. If they gave up the tag, you're asking LVMH to take one of its major money makers and just shrink it to a niche brand. Another example would be, I was listening to the OT, the podcast with Felix Schultz and Andy Green, and they were interviewing Cara Barrett this morning, and in the wake of her thing in Hodinkee about women's watches. And they asked her the question, if you were going to make a pitch to the leaders of the watch community, what would you say to them to get more women buying? And her thing was, recognize how women shop, recognize that women shop through influencers and fashion connections, and leverage that in the same way as clothing and handbags and shoes have been doing. That would be her recommendation. Now, I know for a fact that is going to cause many of you to go apoplectic. You will just lose your shit at the idea that your beloved tool watch brands that are trying to appeal to more women or even just to a broader audience are going to go down that kind of fashion route. Whenever we talk about a brand, the topic, it routinely comes up about, damn you brand ambassadors, why don't you all just go away, save me $10 off my next purchase? So my question is, as hobbyists, as people who have a very specific view of a brand, often what we want of the brand isn't in the brand's best interest, isn't going to make them more money. In fact, it could cost them money. Certainly it will cost them growth. To what extent should we as hobbyists kind of cut the brand some slack and see this as a partnership where we have to give a bit to get a bit? We give up the fact that Tag Heuer exists so that we get those Heuer Monaco replacements. We give up the fact that Lady Gaga is a brand ambassador for Tudor, selling the masses of princes and whatever else they sell in Asia so that they make the Black Bay 58 that we love so much. How much are we prepared to give so that we can get, and how far should that go? And what are your considerations in what you're prepared to let a brand do, even though you don't love it, versus where's a red line for you? And you say, look, if they go there, I don't care. I'm just not going. I'm interested in your thoughts on those topics. So like I said, quickly, the three questions are, why don't we like limited editions? The second one is, do you feel that as individuals or as a brand community, we are very influenced by the other customers of brands and the communities around those brands. And the last question is, how much slack should we cut brands when they do things for their commercial benefit that might not actually be what we as hobbyists want? You can give me your answers in the comments below. That'd be great. Then that gives people to share the opportunity to sort of discuss it a little bit. If you don't want to do that, I'm on Instagram, so follow me over on Instagram. See me over there. Send me a DM. If you don't want to do that, I've got an email address, not.so.obvious.watches@gmail.com. Send me an email. I'm really interested in your thoughts on this. Some of these might become videos later. It depends on what comes back and how my thoughts evolve. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches, and I'll see you later. Bye.